Thanks, Felicia. Hey guys, happy Friday. We made it to Friday. It's another week. It's a fast week. I saw some of you guys on Tuesday. That was really nice. So it's great to have you back here with me on Friday. And for our workshop class. So this is one with lots of stuff in it. And it's got two different versions of the same earring concept and made with two different kinds of beads, just to kind of show like what they look like together, you know, the same type of design with two different style of beads and just ways you can play with your materials to create something that's along the same concept, but with, you know, anything you've got in your stash really, round beads, Delicas beads, round crystals, Bicone crystals, and you can put those together in any combination you want. And I'm hoping that this class today will inspire more ideas on that front, and that we'll see more lovely creations from you guys. Whenever you share your work, it's always just blows me away how beautiful and cool your adaptations are. So keep those coming. So today's class is the budget friendly, or sorry, these are the budget friendly. I never could do left right on the screen. And then the budgetless earrings. And we call these the budgetless because I was designing them and I just started stitching and I was pulling in all my favorite beads and then I added it up and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. So we made two versions, and one version just kind of uses materials that are a little more budget friendly. And then this was the one that was just like, you know, uses all the like the high-end stuff. It's the 14 karat gold ear wires from Michael's and the round crystals, which tends to be just a slight higher price point. It also has the Delicas, which are a little higher than the rounds. And so, but two very beautiful earrings that look amazing on and will just totally rock your summer. So they're both very, very cool. And so I thought I would just demo creating a fringe earring with a diamond shape that has like a bunch of fringe and crystal. So here on the mat, I've got the close-up view of those guys. I've got one and the other on each ear. And so so you can see both pairs. And so this one is made with the size 10 round Czech. And then I used the Bicone crystals that are shown here. You can use any colors you want. This is the cool thing about these types of designs is any colors will look amazing. And if you wanted to still follow the pattern in the handout, you could follow that pattern and change up your colors and make a whole line. Like for a show, if you were doing a show, you could have this in purple and you could have this in blue, and then the mixes of color. You can even do like a rainbow version. And so that's the pattern on the back of your handout called Mountain Stripe. And then this one is made with Delicas. I used these colors here. And it's like a protection eye, Mediterranean feeling to it. That was just a really easy pattern. I liked this pattern because it's more beginner friendly than the other one because it's perfectly symmetrical top and bottom. So it has a midpoint and the top and the bottom are the same, whereas this one, there's a little bit different because you get that mountain thing going on. So there's a little variation to play with there. And then of course, this has the rounds. These are the round crystals. And they're so beautiful and so sparkly. And if you remember from our presentation, we did a little while back on the history of the Czech crystals. There's some really cool history associated with these kind of beads. So that's a really beautiful design. I had a lot of fun with these and I'm hoping you guys will love them too. And so in the handout, there's, oh, well, actually, let me show you the thread first and then we'll move to the handout. I've got some Nymo today. Now, I know a lot of you guys like to use different threads for this type of design, and I would say do whatever you're comfortable with. So Nymo is great. You could use Wildfire for the top part and then bring in something that's more flowy for your fringe. I've seen that work out really great in a lot of designs. But today I'm going to just demo with this. This is just I'll use this color. I did use white in the samples, but so you can see what I'm doing today. I'm going to use the black thread. And I did condition my thread. So I found this at Michael's. It's a Thread Magic. I used to use, let me grab it really quick. You know, and I still do. I used to use this very, very loved beeswax bar, and it works great too. So just whatever you have handy, even if you just have like a tea light candle, it can really help you with working with thread like this to condition it. So I'll walk you through using both of these types. And then the other things you might want to have handy are some scissors. And then you're also going to need some chainless pliers, and those will just be needed for your ear wire at the end. Alternatively, if you wanted to just stitch it right on, you could, and then you're going to need chainless pliers. And I should show you the ear wires. So I'm using just the regular fish hook ear wires. I found these in the findings wall. They're the ones that we use a lot in a lot of our projects. So I know most of you guys probably already have those. But on this pair, I found some fancier ones. And I just have the package here. You'll see them, they look like this. And they're there on the findings wall. So lots of options, and whatever you go with is going to be great. So let's dive into, well, I'll walk you through like kind of like a step-by-step of how I thought would be a good way to demo this. So we'll start by creating the diamond shapes. So here's each of those shapes right here. And thank you for that link, Felicia. That's awesome. So here's the Delica version. This is the protection eye one. And this one is the mountain stripe. And so the step one of this is to build the diamond first, which it's just that shape right there. And then after that, we're going to build fringe off of each one. And I'll go through how to keep that tension good. And then one thing I just wanted to point out is the handout has a couple tips and tricks for how to start it. So most of you guys are familiar with brick stitch. I'm still going to cover it because I know that you probably don't mind seeing it again, and just, every once in a while, we all pick up something new that maybe we didn't see before. But I know there's already brick stitch experts in this class because you make beautiful stuff. So, but we'll cover it. And then also there's this really tricky start, and I kind of debated including it because, it's a little confusing, and it's, I diagrammed it out for that reason, like every single ad, because I know that it has its advantages to work this way. And you'll see in a lot of patterns that you receive, like if you buy a brick stitch pattern online, that it says brick stitch or peyote. And I get a lot of questions about that. Hey, how would you do this as peyote? And so in case anyone was peyote curious, I was going to just show, one way you could do that. There's another method that's called 2-needle, or if you have 2 needles, you can start it this way. All things that you can experiment with. And I'll demo this one with the brick stitch pattern, since the brick stitch one isn't diagrammed out completely. You can create your own word charts. I thought I'd talk just real quick about when you, like, for example, if you create your own pattern or you buy a pattern, typically you're going to get something just like that, right? You're just going to get the colors on a chart like that. You can create your own one of these once you know the structure by counting A. So that's how I did this. I just counted up row 1, and then I figured out row 2, 3, 4, 5, going around. And that's one way to do it. You could also work on one side and then work the other side. But there's a lot of weaving and turning around because every single one of these is a peyote decrease. So it's an advanced technique. And if anyone's struggling with it, brick stitch is just as good. One other thing to note about the peyote start. The peyote start is super confusing for the first 3 rows because of that spin that you get, peyote stitch. It's a lot easier with Delicas than rounds. Working with the rounds is like the pinnacle challenge. So if you've already tried, I know some of you have already tried it and been successful, so kudos to you. But it's also super challenging. So if you don't like it, skip it. Just do the brick stitch way. I just want to throw it in there because I like to give extra in case anyone's curious about something. And you can always email me with questions or find me on Messenger, things like that. But so, hey, let's dive into brick stitch really quick. We'll recap that. Well, let's make this one. And I'm going to grab my needle here. So for thread, it says to cut about 50 inches. That's probably more than you need if you're just going to build the brick stitch part. But if you want to save some length for your fringe, you can cut a really long strand and leave a huge tail. And that's one of the tricks for brick stitch that I really like to use a lot, because adding thread, I'm going to show you adding thread today anyway, but adding thread is puts a little bit of bulk on the top part of your design, right? So you're doing a lot of like stitching around in there. So if you can avoid adding thread, that's always a win, but it is not hard to do. And with a small thread, it doesn't get too bulky. So this is the thread magic. And I usually just take my thumb and just open it like that. And you'll get something that looks like this. It's like and then put your thread in there. and put the cap back on. Kind of guide it to sit in there. And I'll just pull it through that way a little bit. And I'm just working out the spool. Bring it down, give myself a little more length. All right, and I'm not going full length through here because I don't want to go off camera. If I cut a really long strand, that's likely to happen. So I'm going short for myself and I'll just have to add. And then just pull through. Now, if you don't have the thread magic and you're using one of the bars, which are also really great for that, all you would want to do for that to condition your thread, my thread's going to be double conditioned. Is I'll start on one side or kind of toward the middle and I'll pull that side through. And I'm pushing down with my thumb on top of it and then going back in the center again and pulling it the other way. Just to condition both sides. And if you do it a lot, you'll get that wave to come out. And that's just the spool memory. It's remembering being around on the spool. All right, so that's step one. Let's get my needle threaded. Nymo's a little bit trickier to thread than Wildfire, so just give yourself patience, and the conditioning really, really, really helps a lot with getting it on there. So I just brought down, depending on how long of a length you've cut, if you're going for like no adding thread, the whole the fringe done, you probably have a lot to fold over. Just fold over however much you'd like. And it is worked on a single strand. And then the first thing I want to do is grab your pattern. And on my pattern, so I'm going to work the I one. My A is my gold, and the B is white, and the C is blue. And if you're making both earrings, just heads up, for whatever reason, this one made the golds are both A. So that's a little handy. I was getting confused, so I actually went in and changed it so they were both the A. So here's my gold. And I usually just lay them out like so, A, B, and C on the mat. If you're working with a pattern with lots of colors, that's helpful. You can put maybe like a label on your mat with an A and a B and a C. I'm using dishes or something like that. And I think Meredith Roddy from Beadalon, she made a bead mat where she actually used the Cricut to put vinyl iron-on lettering for her pattern layout like this. How cool is that? I need to talk her into sending me one. Okay. So when you're starting a brick stitch pattern, you want to work from the largest or the widest row first. And brick stitches worked from the center up and the center down. And so what a lot of people will do is they'll leave a super long tail, and we might want to do that anyway because we've got fringe to happen later, but they leave a super long tail at the start because they'll use that tail to build this. But alternatively, you could just start building and then weave down. So whichever of those methods appeals to you most. And then when you get to the top, on this one, they're the same top and bottom, but you have the option of coming back later to add your ear wire hoop. You could also use a wire guardian if you wanted to. A lot of times you'll see I do that, but on this one I didn't because I wanted to put a crystal on the top. So on both of these designs, and it's on like page 2 of the handout, we're going to stick a little crystal on the top before the ear wire. I just thought that was neat. And you can either use 4 or 6. I think in the handout I kind of just oscillated between 4 and 6 beads. I thought 4 looked good with the 10-0, and I thought 6 looked good with the Delicas. All right, so let's ladder stitch. So starting the widest point, we're going to ladder stitch this row, A, B, B, C, 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 this whole row here. And if you have a Post-it handy, that's always super helpful too, to keep track of where you are on the pattern. So I'm going to come up with gold. And so ladder stitching, all you're doing is you string the 2 beads, and then you go back through the first bead you strung, and then back through the second bead you strung. And then you just keep doing that until you're at the end of the row. And it's really nice with Delicas because they do just pop right into place. And I've always really appreciated that about the cylinder bead. They just go pop. We also have the option of going back through it at the end if it's not staying super tight for you at this step. It might move around a little bit. So that was my 2 B's. So now I need 4 C's. And give me a shout if anyone's new to ladder stitching. I know I went a little quick through that. So if there's anyone who wants to see that again, I'll back out and start that one again. I know we do lots of ladders, so most of you guys are already way ahead of me probably on that. So that was my second one. Here's a third. All right, so I just got 4 more to go, 2 of these, or 3 more to go, sorry. And to narrate a little bit of what I'm doing, I flip my work when I'm doing a fast ladder like this to keep them straight, and I'm using my fingers to hold them into that side-by-side position. And every time I'm pulling the needle through, I'm holding it. So you get it a little tight, and then my beginning is still loose. And that's always the case with all my laddering, I find, but you can fix it later when you come back, or you can fix it now. So I'm going to show fixing it now just so that it's better, but going back through all the beads one time. So just going to go that way. And I almost always need to do it this way if I'm using a round bead. The round beads are not going to pop like that in any cases, so you have to keep going back through them. There's one. Okay, now here's my chance to tighten up this side. It's kind of wonky looking. And as a bonus, I have my tail here on this side that I can use to do one of my pulls. I don't want to go too tight, but let's see. There we go. So there's ladder stitching the widest row of the pattern. And if you lay it out, you should count and see that you have the right number of beads. And I'm making sure that I do, because you know me. So I've got, it's Friday, A, B, B, 4 C's, and 2 B's and 1 A. So it looks like it did it. And if I didn't, you know, I just go back and fix it. They're just beads. Okay, so brick stitch. I've been really learning some new things about brick stitch lately that really interested me. I bought a couple patterns from some other artists, and I noticed that they don't always start with 2 beads. Now, I've always started with 2 beads, like always, and that's what the diagram in the handout says. Let me bring that around. So, you know, I do my ladder, and then I always seem to pick up 2 and then come under, and then I go back and I straighten this one out. And that's what I'll do today, but there is an option, especially if you're working with thread that is the same color as your side beads. So for example, in this design, if you wanted to go and pull the gold color out, you could do the one bead start. The one bead start will show your thread on the side, but it makes it perfectly parallel flat with your starting row. And I did a few pairs of earrings recently like that, and it just kind of felt fun to do it that way. It was easier than doing the little going back through and straightening it out thing. So I was thinking I'll show you both ways now, and then from here on out I'll just keep doing the way it's diagrammed here. But it was just such a cute idea, and I'm sure that it's not a new idea, but I had just never tried it. So if you just pick up one, and then I go under the first thread bridge. So when you pick up two, you always go under like the second thread bridge, right? Well, here I picked up one, and I went going under the first. I'm going to come through and go up through that bead. And what'll happen is it'll sit perfectly straight, pops right into place. But you have thread on the side. So the thread on the side bothers me, especially if I'm using contrasting thread, which I'm doing right now. So I'm going to remove it. But I just wanted to show that real quick in case anyone likes it. I'm just going to pull this needle off here. And another thing I noticed is that I'm working with the conditioned thread, and that is actually causing it to not be as tight when working. But it's going to be really nice later when we're trying to fringe, and it does not tangle on me. And it'll bead up and wax on you a little bit too. So you can see I've got a little bit of wax going on here. But that's okay. Just going to dust it off a little bit.
Hey, Danielle, when you get a chance, can you bring your mic a little bit closer?
Oh, is it not very loud?
Not too much.
Oh, let's see. Let me figure out what's going on with my settings. My webcam is really loud right now. It's not the highest setting. How's that? Is that a little better?
I'm waiting for everyone in the crowd to
thumbs up. I see some thumbs up. You know, I was looking down at the map pretty intently there, so I think that I just need to remember to keep my
sounds good.
My choir teacher would say to learn to project. Got any singers out there, you'll be laughing. All right, just gonna rethread this really quick. So I just really wanted to show that because I enjoyed doing it that way on some of my recent earrings. So I'm gonna go through here. That needle's just got a little bit of wax in it. Sorry, guys. Needle threading technical difficulties. Almost have it. Sometimes it just doesn't happen instantly for me there. Okay. Okay, so this is the two bead start. So I showed the one. And on the one, you know, the advantage is it sits perfectly straight without having to do the turn, but the downside being that your thread will show on the side. So now I've got the first two beads in my pattern. So let's bring the pattern back really quick. So the first two beads in my next row are going to be an A and a B. So that's what I've got on the needle here, an A and a B. Bring those down. And I like to work from left to right just because I'm right-handed, but it actually doesn't matter which way you're holding it. And so in this case, we want to go under the second thread bridge. So there's the second thread bridge there. Because remember, we picked up 2 beads, so we're going to go under the second one. And then come up through the second bead. And it's going to be a little wonky at this stage. Don't worry about it. It's going to look a little funny. But you see how that one's just not, you'll have to help it, or you might have to go back down through it. So I'm going to try both. I'm going to try pulling tight. And I think this is why, honestly, some people like the peyote start. Got a knot going here. The peyote start saves you having to do this step at the start of every row. But for a brick stitch start like this, you want to go back down through the first one. And then go under that first thread bridge. And pull tight. And then come up through your second bead again. And with any luck, it straightens out. Your 2 beads should sit a little nicer then. And if you're using a more color matched thread, it won't be as visible. But you see, it's still not perfectly lined up. It's like you can kind of see the thread bridges a little bit. And with Delicas, I've always noticed that to be the case. And so that's one advantage of the other start, the peyote one that we'll do next. But I'm going to keep going on the brick for just a few more rows here. And so there's another bead, and we're just at row 2 of that pattern. I'm just trying not to puncture my thread. It's really easy to do. And the cool thing about brick stitches, every row is shorter than the former. And with each new bead, you're just picking up a new bead and then going under the thread bridge and then coming up through that same bead that you just added. Okay, so I just need 2 more B beads and then 1 A. How are we doing? We're doing good on time, so I think I'll get through. I want to show you the top, adding the crystal. Oh, and another thing to mention about brick stitch, it's really tough to get through, or I should say, underneath the thread bridges. It's more difficult on row 1. And that's because we went back through this and reinforced it, so it's extra thick. I've always felt like, and it's so true, like with all beading, the rows after this row gets so much easier. It's just those first couple. And most people kind of give up there, you know, so they never get into the joyful part of it and the relaxing part of it, because the start is always really, it's kind of stressful. But once you get here, you're just kind of like, yeah, you're rolling, and every stitch gets easier. And so the cool thing about this pattern is it's kind of the same thing over and over again, which I like. Now we're just going to do 1 gold bead, 1 white bead, so A and a B, and then go underneath your second thread bridge there. And every time I do this, I just hope that maybe it'll go flat without me having to do the turn, but it kind of rarely does. Let's see what happens. So there's that. It's kind of wonky. I'm going to do the turn again. And we might have to do that with every single one. So going back through the first bead, under the first thread bridge, and then back up through the second bead. And that'll do it. That'll make it go into a much more better, you know, side by side position there. And so all we have to do now is just keep going with the B beads until we are at the second to last thread bridge. So how's everyone feeling about the brick stitch so far? I haven't seen any questions, so I'm just keeping going, but it's just mainly because I want to show you putting the crystal on the top, so that is the only unique little thing here that isn't something that we've done before. I'm at my last B bead for this row. All right, and so now I need to switch and add an A bead. Oh, it came off my needle. No. I'm just going to switch needles again. I think the needle I'm using has gotten really gummy and waxy, and so it's new needle time. Yay. Woohoo. Okay. A bead. There's row 3. All set. This is just coming along. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. There's 6 more rows. I wanted to just jump and show the finished one over here. I put that. So here's where we are. And we've got quite a ways to go. I wanted to see how everyone is doing before I keep going. Let's see if everyone's feeling good about it. Seems like I got thumbs up from Sharon. Do you guys want to see continuing brick stitch up? I don't know if a lot of people are working along. I know it's the same thing over and over. So just in case, I'll keep going, but I'll try to keep it. I'll try to go faster. So here's the next one. We can see that turn again. It's a good thing. So you've got your A bead and a B bead to start. And going under that second thread bridge there. And then I'm going to come up through my second bead. That one was a little better, but I still feel like it's tilted sideways, right? So I'm going to do that turn again, going back down through the first bead. Under the first thread bridge, and it can be a little hard to see, but you can kind of feel it more or less. And then coming up. And so there's the first 2 beads of row 4. And we're just going to add B beads until we get to the second to last thread bridge. My mat is wandering. All right, and here's the next one. Okay, I need a gold bead. That's the last bead in this row. All right, and so that was row 4. I'll put it next to this one here. And we only have a few more to go, and they get faster every time. So I'm gonna keep going to the top. My needle keeps coming off. Apologies for that, guys. It's a kind of a tight tension design. And I haven't really talked about tension, so let me talk about that one. Getting this one on here. With brick stitch, I am kind of using a little tighter tension than I would normally use in a design with, you know, this size of bead, but it's just because I want my stitches to be really tight. And the tighter they are, the less thread is going to show in between the rows. So there's that first thread bridge, right? I went down the first bead, under that first thread bridge, and then up through the second bead. And if you're having the same problem I have this happening to me a couple times now where my needle's coming off because when I'm using my pull, I'm holding the needle and not really securing my thread. You can set your needle down, and I should remind myself to do this, and then just kind of fold the thread over your fingers a little bit. Use your thumbnail. And when you pull, that tension is going to tighten up a lot. And what I see in a lot of beginner brick stitch is loose edges. And that's just because of this step here, really making a nice pull on that side. But I struggle with it to this day. It's not something that comes naturally to me. So I'm always thinking about it when I'm working. So if you're struggling with that too, you're not alone, because I have to really concentrate on it to get it right every time. Almost there. All right. And so that was the end of row 4. Or sorry, that was the end of row 5. Row 5 is all set. Let me pull the pattern back over so I can show you guys how far we have to go. And yeah, my needle came off again. I went for one that has a slightly bigger eye. That's another reason that keeps happening, but easier to thread, but easier to come off. So here's where we're at. We did the row that has 4 bee beads in it. And there's a change here. So that's why I wanted to bring this back over and show you. We're going to just switch all to gold now until we get to the top. And when we get to the top, I'm going to go ahead and create the top 2, and then I'll explain from there. But if you are using a wire guardian, I didn't ask anyone if you are, but if I know a lot of people love doing that. If you're doing that, go ahead and stop at this row. Wire guardians tend to fit a little nicer with Delicas over 3 beads rather than 2. Otherwise, you have to take some pliers and close the wire guardian a little bit. But this design doesn't have one, so I went ahead and went straight to 2. So we can go through one of our crystals. So that's what's coming up. We're just going to finish this gold part right here. Let's just do that really speedy like. Need to come back up through that bead. So now I need 2 A's, right? Because we're all done with the white beads for the top part anyway. And we're going to turn and skip to the second thread bridge. And I'm going back through the first bead, and I'll show another little tip here. When you go back down through the first bead here, you can kind of just bring your needle behind the work and then just come up under that first one, thread bridge there. I do that in a swoop. It saves you a little bit of time. Back up through the second bead. Set the needle down so I don't lose it. And then I'm going to do that little curl thing again and tighten. And so there's that. And let's just keep going, all gold beads. And these fringe designs, you know, they do take a long time. So if you're wondering like, how long will it take me to make a pair? I actually spent a couple days on these earrings. That's why they're super glamorous, and the artists that sell these, they charge a lot because they are very laborious to make. So the you know, the speed you're working, we're going really fast right now. But it's one of those projects that you can't expect it to be one of those ones you can sit in an afternoon and, I mean, you could, I guess, but it would be kind of a marathon. So now I go under that first thread bridge, up through my second bead. Needle down and tighten that up. I've seen a really cool set of designs recently on Instagram where people were ending with like 4 or 5 beads at the top, and then they were putting their wire guarding in the center and letting it have like an open edge like that. That's another cute thing you can do. I follow a couple hashtags. I follow fringe earrings and shoulder dusters. You get a lot of inspo from those two hashtags. There you go. All right, we're on the last row. Yay. Okay, last one is just going to be the 2 gold beads. And you still go under the second thread bridge, which is the last one also. And you want to come up through here. And normally I would do the straightening out thing, but I know I'm going to add my crystal and my loops. So in this case, I'm just going to kind of force them to sit with it by not pulling too tight. So what I did here is, instead of really pulling tight, I just made a priority of them sitting side by side. And it's just a kind of a tension choice there. So let's get some crystals. And so the crystal I put on top, I went for the Topaz, but it's totally up to you what you'd like to do, and depending on your colors and whatever you choose. So, but for me, I'm using the Colorado Topaz color, because it blends into the gold really nicely. That's this one right here. I have leftovers from my last strand that I'm going to pull out here. Okay, and so go up through your crystal with your needle and bring that down. And then I used, so when I was working with the rounds, I used 4. When I'm working with the Delicas, I used 6 beads. And here's a good chance to decide on your ear wire. If you're going to put on a lever back, let me show you a difference between a fish hook and a lever back really quick. And apologies, this one is one of the silver ones that I had handy, but these have, so these do open. And if you want to put on your ear wire later, you can by opening it. But if you're using this kind of ear wire, it's actually a lot easier to put it on now. The opening, if you can see it, it's kind of at the back, like by the hinge. I don't know if that's coming over, but the opening is back here where my thumbnail is. And so your thread is not going to pull through. That's the best part when you stitch it. So how I made this one, when I was working with the lever back ear wire, I went ahead and I strung 3 and I went through the ear wire, strung 3 and came back down through my crystal. If you're using a fish hook, you can make a loop and add your fish hook later. Those are a little easier to open. So, grab one of those real quick. But alternatively, you could string it now too. And its opening is up here. So in both cases, it's nice and secure because it's the thread tends to come through seams. And in the case of these, the seams are all at the top where gravity would be helping you by it's hanging down here. So there's an example. It looks like I used maybe one of those other kind of ball ones on that one. Same difference though. All right. So let's do it the easy way. Go through your ear wire and bring that down and then get 3 more beads. There's my 3 more. Go through my crystal and then go through the, we exited from this side. Go through the one you didn't exit from. Another thing is I'm puncturing my thread. So let's be a little more careful there. There we go. Okay. It's all really loose right now. Don't sweat that. Come down through this side. And I'm going to hold the ear wire up here and just pull it all tight. And the next thing you can do if you want to do this, go through the thread bridge that's underneath that bead, because remember we didn't straighten it out. Alternatively, you could just turn and come up through the second bead. But I went ahead and just for, you know, something to anchor to, I like anchoring it. I went ahead and went under the thread bridge, and now I'm going to come up through the second one. And go through the crystal again. And then something I wanted to mention also, you do have the option of just stopping when you get to the spot. Let's say you finished it and this is the step where you're going to put that crystal on and you're going to keep going. You can optionally leave that for later. And I think when I really thought about it, the order of operations doesn't really change the end result other than it might be a little easier to do your fringe without dodging your ear wire. So I'm showing it to you at this step, but you don't have to do it at this step. And in fact, I think it might even be easier not to, but it really has no impact on the final design. It's just that you'll have something hanging out up here when you're doing your fringe. So just something to think about, you know, when you're putting it together, like which step do I want to do in which order? Sometimes I like to have my ear wire done first so I can hold my fringe up and look at it as I'm working. And that's something to think about. If you're doing one of those designs where you aren't working with a cylinder bead, you're working with like a round, and there's going to be some variation. And your counts are more of a guideline at that point because you may get a slightly different length. So in that case, I might put my ear wire on first so I can hold it and look at it dangling to see if there's any outliers, right? So that's something to think about too. It's one reason to go ahead and put your ear wire on first versus not. But there's no right or wrong there, just like whatever you like to do. It's totally fine. All right, and I'm going to reinforce that one more time. That's what I would do on an earring, especially if I was going to sell it, because this is a what's called a repetitive pressure point for the design. So in this case, I didn't worry about thread bridges. I just went down through the first bead and then up through the second, back up through my crystal. And then I went through the beads on one side, ear wire, beads on the other. Come down. And we're ready to go. So if you have thread left, and if you left a long tail, you have more choices here. You can weave down and start building your brick stitch, or you can weave in, cut, and then use your long tail to start building the bottom part of your brick stitch. Either way works great. I'm going to weave down for mine. I'm just checking the time here. I know we're going to do a little break here. So I'm going to show the first couple of rows down here at least, of getting the brick stitch to decrease from the bottom. So now I'm where I want to be to start the bottom part. So if you come along to your pattern, and we have the luxury on this pattern of it being symmetrical, but if it wasn't a symmetrical design, you would flip it over, take a Post-it and just cover up all of that and work it down from that point. So we want to work this row here all the way down. And, you know, it's pretty fast once you get going, it isn't too bad. I mean, it's definitely a labor, but and the same thing you'd have to do it, you know, the same thing we've been doing all along where you go back and straighten it out. And then back to that base row where my thread bridges are super tight, but it's easier. I have something to hold on to here. So there's another bonus of being the bottom part of the brick stitch. And I'm not loving how that's sitting. So let's fix it. There we go. And at some point here, I'm going to show adding thread. It's getting short. There we go. All right, so here's where we are. We have finished all the way to here. And now we just need to do these bottom rows. So I'm going to just keep stitching for the next 4 minutes or so, and then we'll take a quick break. I know that we'll be at the hour at that point. So we'll give everyone a moment to stretch and get some water. And then we'll regroup after that. So there's that turn, just to make it, you know, pop. Set that down. And there we go. And so this is going to be all bee beads going across. I'll show you on the pattern really quick. We're on this row now. So we did the one with the 3C in the center, and now we're on this one. Is anybody working along? I think lots of you guys are stitching along here. We have a really cool class coming up in July that I just submitted. That's going to be more brick stitch like this. But if you've ever wondered how to do increases and decreases in brick stitch, it's the cutest design ever. I'll show it at the end of class. We're going to do a deep dive into this kind of stitching where you can work on a pattern that doesn't automatically decrease down from the main row like this. It kind of does a little pattern. So we can expand on what we're doing here for that. Right, there's that row. So next row, we're going to do one with 5B and then one with 4B, and they're both starting with A's. That one went really smoothly. It just kind of worked great. I haven't solved that mystery yet. It's like, why does it work so great on some rows? Still trying to figure it out. All right, so we're at the 1 o'clock mark. What I was thinking is we'll regroup and then we'll add thread. And so let me finish this row and then we'll just do that. Or actually, my needle came off again. So great time to, when your needle starts coming off like that, it's time to add thread. All right, so yeah, if everyone wants to just take maybe like a 5-minute break, I won't do any instruction for about 5 minutes here, and we'll catch up at, I'm on Pacific time, so for me that's 1:05. For you guys, it's 3:05 if I'm correct about that. So yeah, I'll just probably gonna rethread my needle and see you guys back here in just 5.
Hey, Danielle, it's Carmi.
Hey.
Did you bring yourself a bottle of water or anything for a refresher? Pat's having a cuppa, a happy cuppa. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Yay. I should have made a coffee. I always forget to bring myself like an iced tea or something.
I know, we need someone to deliver a coffee in the 2-hour class.
Now that would be cool.
Danielle, while a few people are just sitting and relaxing for a few minutes, when you got to the halfway point, it was already perfect. And I do know a lot of seed beaters stop then and start adding their fringe. So this diamond design is just really a 1-up.
Yeah, I just wanted to do something a little different because we've done one where they end on a flat before, and so I just wanted to add a little to it. It makes you have a lot more fringe.
A lot more fringe,
yeah.
Definitely.
It doubles the number of strands you're adding, so it's.
And I was following a conversation online where there's a beater who they make their living making fringe earrings, and they were saying, you know, for some days they just do tops. They just work on tops and make a whole bunch, and it might be weeks later that they add the fringe. So for some people, it might be fun today to just complete their tops, and maybe tomorrow they'll do the fringe part, or a couple days from now.
Definitely. I think I don't do this fringe on the same day either, now that I think about it. Yeah, that's definitely true. I think I come along and do the fringe later. Because this part feels like it just you need a little break afterward, you know? And so then the fringe, sometimes I'll do a couple strands and then you know, set it aside, come back, do some more strands. And
exactly. I just noticed Winnie commented as well. She definitely waits also.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you get good at one thing really quickly. So I would probably be better off to make a whole bunch of tops, and because I would get faster and faster and then go back and do the fringe later and get fast at that. I don't know, Pat, I'm looking at you. What do you think? Pat, would you make tops first and fringe later? She's going to type an answer for us. No, she's a finisher.
I almost guessed that. Pat. So Pat was awesome. She checked out the pattern in advance and pointed out some things that, I could talk to that will really help. And one of them is going to be when we add our fringe. I'll talk about tension for that because I noticed that it is a little trickier to add fringe when you don't have a base row that's flat. So that's why this is another, it's kind of weird. So like when you do a flat base row, you got that 1 for 1, but when you do the pyramid, you're adding beads and they're going to sit half out of the one that they're exiting from. So it makes them fan out. And it's harder to get the tension right, but we'll demo that too. So,
well, Danielle, I'm going to turn my mic off and let you get back to it.
All right, yeah. Is it? Oh wow, it's time. Okay, so if everyone's back, let's say everyone's back. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this row here, and then I'm gonna add thread because my thread got short. And if that happens to you, this is the same process. I usually actually run out when I'm fringing, but it's the same process to add thread. You'd want to end if you're at a fringe row, for example, you would want to end after you've added a fringe and done a turn, and then stop there, and then leave your existing thread in place. And it's a placeholder. It's a placeholder for your pattern too, if you're following a pattern, but it's also just nice to be able to weave it into a different segment than the one you're weaving into for thickness reasons. So I always do that for like every kind of bead weaving I've got out there. I'll do my new strand and I'll weave my new strand into the existing real estate that I've got. And then I'll create some more rows and take my old strands and weave them up into the new one. And that just divides the bulk over a larger area than, squishing it all down into one place. And it's not required, but it's nice, right? And there's my thread, and I'm just going to condition it really quick. Grab this one's handy, so I'm just going to go with this one for now. Just sliding that through. And the amount of thread you added, that's going to depend on where you are in your design. And if you aren't sure, just, go with another 50 inches. That's a good working length for tangles. With these kind of designs, tangles happen. Always happen at the worst time. I get frustrated with it. So I'll often work with less thread just to prevent that from happening. And so for me, that length is 50 inches. I go any higher and I'm tempting the thread to knot. Okay, and so the way to weave in a brick stitch or a peyote stitch design, just like this, is you would enter the work kind of anywhere. Just pick a spot. And I'll just pick a bead that lets me go in easier. That one's a little tight. And then if you're where I am, for example, maybe avoiding that middle row, just knowing that the middle row had a lot of thickness already to get through. So leave a little bit of a tail just so that you don't pull it through by accident. And our goal with all the turning we're about to do is when we pull on this side, right now, this will move. And our goal is to make this side not move. So the way to get it to lock in is to just do a bunch of turns. And you can use your thread bridges. The thing is it's just really hard to get between the beads. And there is a slight chance that you'll move them around. But there's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that if you'd like to. But I generally just weave around. I don't go through my thread bridge. And if you think about it in like a peyote stitch design, if you were doing a bracelet or something, you wouldn't go through a thread bridge on that, right? It'd be kind of hard to find it. So I just make circles through my beads, and then I test and see if my tail is moving, and my tail is still going to town there. So I've got more to do. Come down to the next one here. Go up. Yeah, okay, so here we go. So we're watching for movement on that strand right there by pulling on the working side of it. And it's locked. I'm not really able to get that to move. So now I'm just going to aim for where my old thread was, which was the strand right here. And if you did the step of leaving a really long tail at the first step when we first started building the brick stitch, you might have a strand like this one. That's just kind of going off. Leave that one there because our first strand of fringe on this side will be on that bead. So go ahead and leave your long strand there. And I'm going to turn and come down. Which bead? I'm going to go down through this bead over here. And again, I'm just aiming for the spot where my old thread is exiting, my old working thread. Being careful not to puncture it as I come through. Okay. So first thing I want to do is trim that tail. Let me get that out of the way. That's really in the way. Okay. And then let's just quickly finish this one and we'll get those old strands woven up into it. And under here. I'm speeding up just a little bit because I know we've covered this a couple times and I'm hoping to show you. I'm hoping I have time to show you the peyote start because it's kind of cool to see, but we'll race to the finish here. And so there's my turn again. I got that to sit really nicely there. And again, I'm still ignoring my other strand, my old working thread, because I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to make like 2, maybe 3 rows and then bring this one up into it. Oops. A little knot. If you get a knot, resist the urge to just keep pulling. Speaking from my own. Let's see here. It's got a little bit of one, and what really causes it is my tail. There we go. Yay. That's coming along. All my knots happen when I'm pulling too fast at this step, which is where I'm going under the thread bridge. That's where there's a lot of resistance. There's friction there. And the thread just starts dancing and I get a lot of knots at that exact spot. Oh, and let me show you where we are now. So I finished 4 rows below the main. And so we've got, right, we finished 4 of the B's. And now we need to just do these next rows all with A. And I almost put a B bead on there. It's not what I wanted. There we go. So we need to go with all A from here on out. Again, that's my second thread bridge there. I'm gonna try to go a little slower. Got a lot of thread going here. Back down through the first and under that first thread bridge. Up through the second bead. Got another knot. But that kind of worked, just pulling the bead over it kind of undid the knot. That was interesting. There we go. Let's do one more row and then bring the tail thread up. And so when the replay comes out, you'll be able to fast forward, and this way you'll see the entire brick stitch being built, and that might be kind of handy to have later too. So there's those four there. Let me grab a spare needle, and I'm going to try to bring my old working thread up into it. Okay, so I'm just going to go down one row and into this row here. And let's just bring it back up. But I'm kind of trying to stick to my new rows with my weave in. All right, I'll go ahead and trim it there. I think that looks good. Let's grab the scissors and trim this one. There you go. Old working thread is gone. New working thread, super long. Got that going still. And this was one that was the tail at the beginning, and it's got enough on it that I could probably do one strand of fringe. So I'm leaving it there for now. And I'm going to come along and just finish the rest of this row. And this is the home stretch here. It's the second to last one of our brick stitch. Okay, last row here. And I am going to straighten this one out. I know I didn't do it at the top before the crystal, but this was really truly my last chance to make that straight. The fringe won't do that for me. So I went ahead and did our turn with that last row, where you go back through the first bead under that first thread bridge, and then you come up through the second bead. I did that here because I felt like it really helped. All right, so here we are, fringe time. You'll have a little diamond shape like that. And I'm just going to add as many, fringe rows as I can get to until I run out of thread maybe, and then see, I'll check in with you guys. But let's switch to the handout really quick. So there, it's kind of the same pattern for both of them, but on this one, I just went with all gold. And on, excuse me. And on this pattern, I went with whatever color I was exiting from, I strung that color. So if I was exiting from gold, I strung gold. If I was exiting from green or emerald here, I strung emerald white. So that's how this design was done. And on the gold one, it's all gold because you're exiting from gold in every case. And so I just stuck with that. And so the counts are totally up to you. You can really do whatever counts you like. Let's see what I did. And I play with these a lot, but I just kind of, I hold them up. Like, so for example, I'll hold it up and look and see what length do I want for this design. And then I'll play with it. And I might pull it apart 1 or 2 times just to see if that's the dangles length that I like. So it's really kind of up to you what you think would look good. But I think for this one, I think I did like 9 or 10. It looks like I did 9 beads and 1 crystal 3 times. And then of course you need your turning seed bead. So if you're looking at the handout, that's right here. So I'll stick with that here because that really looked cool. And in both designs, I felt like it worked really well. But do feel free to change that count up to anything that you like. And you don't have to make them the same. But the cool thing about the diamond, I wanted to mention this really quick, is both of these earrings look like I made them longer in the middle than on the side, and they give that kind of draping down effect, you know. That happens naturally just because the height of the diamond is decreasing. And you can do that, you achieve that without having to change your counts, which is easier to not mess up. When I start going with this many strands of fringe, I'm gonna make a mistake. Like I always lose count somewhere. And so after every strand, I'll hold it up and look at it and see if I did anything that looks like it jumps out at me, like, oh, that's not what I meant to do. So I am doing that every time I add one. But what you can do is just, if you're using the same counts, it just takes some of the guessing out, and you don't even have to look at the pattern, right? There's no need to look at any kind of fringe pattern because you're just using the same one over and over and over again. All right, bead time. Let's get some crystals. Where did I put those? There. And I'll probably need to cut a new strand, but this is what I had left of my old ones. I'm gonna try to stick with what I did here. I went clear, topaz, and then clear. So here's 9 of these. And then here's a clear. And let me know if there's any questions about that, the fringe part. I know that it can be kind of like, because it's just totally up to you what you like. There's no reason to not change it. But if you wanted to keep it exactly as we were doing it here, I've matched the color of the bead that my threads were exiting. So with each turn in the diamond, let me bring the diamond over here. That will really, really help. So here I'm exiting from gold and gold and gold, right? And so you'll see I've got 3 strands of gold here. And there's blue and blue, 2 strands of blue. Then there's a gold. So it goes down to another strand of gold. If you're exiting from the white one, there's the white. So that's all I did there. I just kind of matched my exiting color, and that had a really cool effect. I thought that looked really neat. And this is the more advanced, like, you know, pattern, but it's pretty beginner friendly in that it's got those kind of like cheats built into it. And this one is the easiest of all because it's just all gold. We're just coming with gold out of every single one. And the counts are the same: 9 crystal, 9 crystal, and then 9 and then crystal, or 9 and crystal turn. Here's my topaz, and I put topaz in the center on this one and on the On this one, I matched the color of the crystal with the strand. Sorry, I didn't mention that before. That was probably the question I saw pop up. On the white strand, I got a white crystal. But again, totally up to you. Whatever you think looks cool, definitely change that up. How many do I have here? I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then there's one more. Here's 9. And I went with clear for that. Okay. And so I just want to do this first one a little bit slow. These first 2 strands are going to be easier because we have this nice little flat area to exit from. It's going to get trickier when we come over here. And so you can kind of decide, like, what order do I want to work my strands in? I think on the first one, I worked the first 2 here, and then I worked all the way up the side. But something to think about is where you left your really long tail. If you did one of those super long tails to start, you may want to aim to weave up the side that doesn't have your tail. So you'll probably get this far, and then you can switch over and start using that strand to build your other side. So that's something to think about when you're building it. If you didn't want to start this one, and you could just continue up this side. So maybe we'll do that since my tail's over here. I've got 1 bead. So under my crystal, I put one of the little Delica beads there. It's a little hard to see. Sorry about that. 1 Delica. Skip that last Delica. And then just come back up through the crystal and all the beads above it. And that's easier done on the mat than holding it. And I'm just being careful not to miss a bead. So let's check. Let's see. Is there any missing beads? I went through all of them. Okay. And I've got one more segment here to go. All right. So once you get through the top last bead in your fringe strand, you go through the one of your threads exiting there. So this one. Okay. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to pull it through until, because I have a really long folded over segment, now we're working with this folded over thread. And I've got this one sticking out here. I'm going to keep pulling through until it's out of the way and until it's free, right? Because this next trick won't work if that is hanging out in there. So get that folded over part free. And then maybe holding the thread and not your needle so you don't lose your needle. Pinch this bead down here and go ahead and pull tight. So I'm pulling with my working hand over here on the right, out of camera. And I'm pinching the little bead at the bottom. So that's getting the tension just for the first one there. And turn, come down through here and build another strand and then work up the side. But what I mentioned earlier was that I was thinking I would like to work up this side because I've already got strand over here, right? So instead of adding that one now, which I could add it now and then just weave back, but I'm going to weave up through here. So I'm going through the center bead in that row because I want to exit from this one. And so I'm coming up through that bead. And then I'm going to go through the center and then come down through this side. Let me see if I diagrammed that. I believe I diagrammed that really quick. I hope I did. Yeah, I did. So to show you what I just did there is I went up through the middle bead and then turned and went down through that bead. So we'll have to do that with the diamond going up the side. So I'm going to pull through here. And I'm going to turn and come down through here. Okay. And so I'm hoping everyone can see that I'm exiting from the next bead up in the stairs there. So I went through this one, the middle one, and then came down to this one. So we're going to build just another strand, same counts, same measures as the first one. And we get to do that for every single one, which is really nice. So just remembering 9. And clear bead. And I'm going to just talk about tension here, and then I was going to see how we're doing on time, because I don't think building all of these strands will fit into the hour. So I just want to take some questions on Fringe after this. So if you have one, get ready. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Topaz. There's that one. Okay, here's the last bead. That's the turning bead there. So we want to use that bead to turn. So push that one down. Go ahead and come up through all those beads again. And another thing that I wanted to show is over here, I'm kind of pulling on this strand. And then I'm using the tension there as I push against it with my needle to kind of help me get through. So there's one section anyway. And go through the next one here. All right, so just double checking that I didn't miss a bead, and it's definitely happened to me more than a couple times. So I check every strand. Did I get through all those? And if I did, then it's good. All right, and so here's where we're exiting from. That bead right there. Go ahead and go back up through this one. And the same trick I did before where I'm pinching the bottom bead and pulling, but this time I'm gonna let go of it and I'm gonna give it a lot more tension than I did before. And it's just a little trickier because of the fact that there's, you see how it's gonna kind of hang out? It's almost looking like a little bit like peyote stitch, right? Because it does not have an entire bead above it that it can hang from. So just something to think about there. And a little extra tension helps. I'm going to weave through the bead above it. That's one in from the one I want to exit. So I can turn and go out the next one. And down to the next one. So really the only difference between a flat base fringe row is you're having to account for weaving around to reach the next one up in your diamond. So I want to take a minute and see if anyone has any questions about adding the fringe. It's the same steps now from here on. Just want to see how everyone is doing. I know a lot of you guys out there are experts on this already, so and let me know if I missed anything or all right. I'm feeling like everyone's got fringe. And I was thinking I might take the last half hour to show that alternate start, just in case there's any interest in it. It's trickier. I have to follow the chart really closely when I do it. So bear with me, but it's kind of fun to see. And if I make a mistake, I'll fix it. But I'm bravely going. I've already got the Delicas out, so I'm just gonna stick with those and we'll do that pattern. I need more thread. So I'm gonna grab some more thread here. Hey, where'd the tail go? No, I see it. It's hiding from me there. When you get in the center of these Nymos, there's so much coil. Look at that. They're like, ooh, all right. And so all I wanted to say really quick for this technique, be really gentle with yourself. Like, don't be all, oh, I didn't get it. It's honestly, it's tricky. It's really tricky following a pattern like this. Now, if you're just making a regular diamond shape, that's a lot easier with just one color, and maybe try that first or something. But I tried a couple things. I tried writing out the pattern, which I don't actually build them that way myself. I just look at the picture, but I wrote it out in case that helps anybody. But the way that it's written out, and I wanted to make sure I explain that really well. So let's push these over. Okay. So the way that this is written right here makes the assumption that you're going to build your, so, well, let me backtrack. So when we built the brick stitch, our first row was this one, right? But if you build it in peyote, your first row is here. And it's, you know, up bead, down bead, right? So you can either do the 2 needle method, which is where you come up, go through 1, add 2, go through 1, 2, 1, and then you just take each needle and build the pattern out. It has a decrease after every row. Or you can try the 1 needle method, which is by far the trickiest one, but it's the fastest. If you get going and you've got the thread path, it just has an annoying amount of weaving around. So I don't know. It's kind of like when it comes to building these, it's like pick whichever one is the least annoying. And I honestly, I just kind of oscillate. Like, oh, one day I might make it this way. One day I might make it the other way. And it just depends on my mood and what I'm feeling. But this way was not something I tried until I had been beading for a while. You know, I just kind of gave it a few years. But it involves stringing your row 1 here. And so I did write out the row 1. And what it looks like when you're stitching is it's kind of going around and around. So you build your 1. Then you do a turn here to add the tops. So you create the top part. Then you just start stitching around, down and up, down and up. I don't really follow those paths so much as I just eyeball it, but I'm going to stick to what I've got here. So we've got the 4A. And then I need my 3B. Okay. And then I need 3C. Okay. And then I need 3B again. And 4A. And so that's the start. And that's actually going to become 2 rows. You know how in peyote stitch that first strung area becomes the up and down beads for the next row to be built on. So that's exactly the same thing that's going to be happening here. But there's one added tricky thing, which is we've got to get it into a position where we can do our turn. And so we would do step 1 here, right? Bring it down. And what adds this trickiness is the decrease. If this didn't have a decrease, it would be a regular old peyote build, right? You would just go new bead, skip a bead, go through the next bead, new bead, skip a bead. But we can't do that here because we don't have a new bead in row 1. So it's kind of like it switches back and forth, odd count, even count. Decreasing is probably the hardest thing to do in peyote. But there we've got that little start, and that'll look familiar to most of you guys for a peyote start. We built that little top, right? I'm hoping everyone can see that, but there's our regular start. Again, we have to decrease. And so because of that, you got to pick up another A, and we're going to turn already, right? And we're going to just kind of go around the horn. So we're going to turn. And anyone who does not like this, I'm with you. It's like, oh, seriously. But I just figured, you know, I'll show it just in case anybody likes it. So I brought that bead up through the last one. I'm going to go around and down this way. And it can actually help if you put a stop bead on your end too. Something I forgot to mention earlier. mine's being a little wonky. All right. Does anyone want to see that again? I got it to work, but I had to really finesse it. What I did is I added an A and then it went around the horn and came out the other side. So I feel like it didn't go smoothly. So I want to show it again. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my needle off. And as in all peyote stitch, the hardest part is that first 3 rows and the twisting. When it starts twisting and you start losing track of, am I on? Which side am I on? Okay. I'm literally starting over by default here. And I think, Pat, you tried this, right? Which pattern did you try it with? You tried it with the mountain. Yours looked really good. Pat sent me a picture and it looked amazing. All her work looks amazing, so. Okay, there's one side free. Sorry, guys, I got a little bit of a knot there, but it's better. Okay, so I'm going to go back to stringing that first row. I just want to show that one more time. Okay. Oh, Pat, you said you tried with the eye too? Okay. I think it'd be really fun to have like a whole day workshop someday with you guys. I don't know if any of you guys are going to Bead Fest. I'm going to go to Bead Fest. And I'm not teaching there, but I'm going to do a demo, but I'm not doing like a whole like regular show. With COVID, it was just too hard to plan. I just didn't know where things would be. Okay, so I'm back where I started. Sorry about that. So I'm at 4A. I'm going to do my 3 Bs again. Yeah, and I'm thinking that's a really good point. I should have diagrammed both of them or just left it out entirely. It's the same path, but it's just different pattern, right? So it can really throw you off if you're following the picture, but using different colors. That's for sure. But when I started doing it this way, I would actually work just by looking at it, because a simple pattern like this, I can kind of eyeball it. I felt like the other one was a little more complicated, so I chose to diagram that one since it doesn't have a symmetry between the top and the bottom. So that's why I went with that. If it helps, I can go ahead and do that. I can do another diagram for this one. So, all right, so I'm back here where I started at row 1. So I strung those beads there, the 4A, 3B, 3C, so those guys. So now what we've got to do here is these turns. 1A has to go in the regular peyote way and the other A has to come up, and then we go around the horn and we build down one side. So you pick up 1A and you go down through this one. I'm actually hoping that it helps to see me struggle with it a little bit, so you can you can see that that was a really challenging thing, and if you got it, that's really cool. Okay, so there's that start, right? And so what I need to do is I need to go back. I need to go back through with an A bead on there, back through this way, and then come around and start building the side. So here's turning with an A bead there. And they come down this way to the other side. Okay, and then you need another A bead. And then working back to our strand here, you want to skip the first A, go through the next one. And so here's what we got. We've got the top two. What you're going for is having those top two, and then you should have three underneath it, right? So there's, if this was our brick stitch design, for example, we just kind of built the top first, right? I want to just show the structure there. So we just built that. And I know it's really hard to see how we got there, but we did that loop around, we added the A, we went around the horn, added another one. And now we're just going to go all the way down the side. And you can still do that trick where you pull it apart. And so I wrote that out here. I wrote that we strung this. We added that A, right? This one went around the horn. We've added this A. We need another A now. So picking up an A, skip a bead and go through the next bead. I'll get as far as I can on this. I know we're getting tight on time. Apologies. I can always do a video too to show a little bit, you know, step by step how to do that. Okay, and so my next bead is going to be a B bead. Oops. I actually missed a bead. Sorry about that, guys. I'm thinking that it's really, really challenging. And what I'm going to want to do is take that bead off. Bring that one back through. I've never attempted anything this challenging before in a live, so you guys are with me. But you're the group I would try this with, because no, I would be so nervous if this is one of the big ones where, yeah, this is really hard. All right, and so I got this one on there. I need to go through the center bead. There we go. It's all loose now. And so I'm losing my perception of which one was where. Okay, I think I'm back. So I've already got that gold bead on here. Come down through this one, which is where I thought I was. All right, So it's doing what it's supposed to, but it's just super loose and wonky. But basically where it's at right now is I've got these 2 belt, these 3 belt, and then I've got another A bead hanging out going through the next one. And once I get this row on, it'll be so much better, but it's just super scary. So I got to do one more A, skip the next A, and go through my B bead. Sorry, I've gone off camera there. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. And then a B. And I'm just following this word chart here. Skip the next one. Go through the next one. And if I don't, it looks like I probably won't get through this in the hour. So I will do a slow-mo video of this for you guys, and I will send it. I'll figure out a way to get it to you. So we are at, now we're at 2C. So skip a C, go through the next C. And I want to leave time to show you all the previews of the next stuff. So this is the next C, skip the next bead, go through the next one. Row 1 is so challenging. Row 2, and then I need a B again. Skip the next bead and go up to the next one. And then 2A. Oh, bye, Seema. Thank you for coming. Let's skip one and go to the next one here. All right. And so this is how that I finally arrived there, guys. Yay. The top is still looking wonky, but I just want to show you the structure of what happened here. We had to do that turn to build that decrease at the top. But now that we've got it, everything will kind of make sense a lot more. And the reason it'll make sense is because you can actually compare it to the chart now a lot easier. But these top beads are not, they're not positioned side by side, right? Just really loose, and that can really throw you off. And then there's of course the spin, which is easier on this design than the other one. But what you would do from here is you build back up this side. And I think I've got a minute. I'll try to do that really quick. So that when you're again, you know, some A's. Some A. Oh, thanks, Felicia. And Felicia's sharing in the chat right now that we have our next class coming up, which is a crystal sparkle bracelet. And that's going to be on, I think it's June 5th, if I have that right. No, not June 5th, June 3rd. 5th is a Sunday. And so that's the very scary way that this peyote stitch started becomes really worth it now. So now it is literally just straight on until you're finished, because I don't even have to look at the pattern anymore. I mean, I wrote it out, but I don't really need to look at it to know what bead, because the clear that, you know, I've got to go through. So there's that row done. And so all you keep doing is, and it's up to you, I wrote it out as going around, but if you wanted to, you can weave around. The only frustrating part is you have to get yourself in a decrease on each side. And that's easier to do in the beginning by going all the way around the top beads. So you can stitch up through this one and then come down this side. And then you just start building the next row. And every time you get to the bottom, you can keep going around the horn until it gets too thick, and then you can start weaving through the center parts. And in the more complicated pattern, I actually diagrammed it out so you can see like where to weave around. So I know I did a really not so great job of showing that. So if anyone's really super confused about it, but really loves it and wants to deep dive on it, I can walk you through it, or I can do a little video. We'll figure something out. Just get in touch with me. And because I know this was really super challenging. It's advanced stuff. So, but I wanted to at least try because this is the premium class and this is where to do that stuff. So hopefully I did okay. I'm going to show you guys next classes really quick. And while I've got the mat here, so let me clear up this really quick. And I'm going to bring down this one. Okay. So when we get back on the 3rd, here's this class, this one here. And I know Pat already did it. So I don't know, Pat, if you have, oh, see Pat's holding it up. Yay, good. That's so cool. So I know this one is super beginner friendly. It's a lot more relaxing than what we were just doing, but I'm looking forward to this one because it's a really cool way to integrate Super Duo with your crystal. So how fun is that? Any clasp you want. I use the magnetic one that's in the handout, but anyone that will work. And class after that, I want to say it's on the 10th, is the super cool sun catcher earrings. And so one thing that I wanted to point out for the sun catchers is that you may not be able to find these hoops because when I went back to my Michaels, there was a different hoop in place of this one. And I'll show you in that class. I'll work with different size hoops. The pattern, you'll have to change the counts, but the structure and stitch path will be the same. So we'll play with that during that class. And then I'm going to leave this one on the board because I've got it so nicely. But this is the next premium class that we have, another 2-hour one. And this one is a brick stitch around. It's just a kind of variation on stitching on a component, but I wanted to show connecting. And so we can do that together in the workshop, just connecting pieces together. And I made a bail out of a larger crystal. And these are some things that I found at Michael's, just charms, but you can use any charm and any connector really. So I'll go in more detail on that in that class, and I'll talk about it a little bit beforehand too, so you guys can get your materials ready and stuff. But this one, I'm excited about this one. I really love these. They're so cool. This is brick stitch again, but it's brick stitch with increase and decrease to make a pattern. And it was something that I realized we hadn't done in any of our classes yet. So I wanted to do something like that. And then after that, a shaped ring. And this one is, it's one of the hour classes. It's not one of the 2-hour, but it is kind of an advanced technique. It's odd count right here that we did, like an odd count single. It's kind of like 1.5 column, I guess you could call it. And then we did another brick stitch thing to make the tops. So this is like just the super coolest ring ever. Great for summer, right? And then I will show you the July premium class next time because I don't have that one quite ready yet. I'm still working on it. And it's almost fresh off the presses here. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else I was going to share with you guys? I can't remember. Any questions? Or let me switch to gallery view just so I can see everybody. Also focused. I didn't get to see everyone today, so it's a big group. Hi guys. Thanks for bearing with me on the peyote thing. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate it. Yeah, you guys make me feel brave to try the scary stuff. So I really appreciate that about you guys. You're a really friendly and supportive group and just great artists too. So you always inspire me. All right, well, I'm going to wish you guys a great weekend. I know it's getting late. We're a little bit close to the 2 hours here. Thanks for sticking with it. And I'll see you guys in our next class on the 3rd. And feel free to catch me on socials if you need anything. Oh, wow. Oh, Valerie, that's so pretty. I love mine. I've been wearing them. Thanks, guys. All right, bye.